Welcome to Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. The podcast for pet groomers ready to start their next chapter. Let's explore what's possible when you trade in the grooming table for the freedom of virtual work. Whether you're done with the physical toll or just craving more flexibility, you're in the right place. We're staying in the pet industry, just shifting how we show up. So take a breath, step away from the table, and let's see what's waiting for you on the other side.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table podcast. I am your host, Riverly of the Savvy Groomer, as well as Step Away from the Table, and this is my co-host, Jess of Groomer Support Services. And we're going to be talking today about a really cool topic, and that is going to be all about AI versus the human touch in your business. And right now, we're going to be talking specifically to aspiring VAs who worry about AI making them irrelevant. So the question is going to be, can I compete with AI? And why is there still room for real people in these kind of virtual worlds? So, Jess, as somebody right now who works full time as a virtual assistant for pet groomers, I think you are one of the most capable people about talking about these topics. So
Oh, thank you.
you're like, I know.
I try a little bit. But truth is, I'm AI myself. Just kidding.
Just
Okay.
kidding. She's like, you've seen Blade Runner. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, so yes, this is something that has come up again and again, both like prior to me becoming a groomer VA and being in a groomer VA. Every time I see new stuff coming out, I'm like, I like pause a little, take a breath, and then I just remember like what's really missing is the human touch, the connection, the humor, empathy. It's completely irreplaceable when it comes to AI versus what a VA can do. And AI can do a lot, so we're not discounting that. We'll talk about all the pros and cons in this episode, maybe some others where we touch on AI. But yeah, there's the human connection part. That's everything.
well, I mean, do you feel like AI could ever replace the human connection as part of your work? Like, do you think that's, I mean, we're talking, not talking like, Terminator, Skynet, or,
Mhm.
like androids, right? But I mean, do you think that AI will be able to replace that in any capacity, honestly?
I don't want to have like a strong yes or no answer because it's really dependent on each person, but I lean towards more the strong no. And I'll give an example. So when I'm working with pet parents of my supervisor's clients, so many of them I am messaging, texting via the software apps, right? And still they still want to talk to people, like I have a lot of elderly clients, and even if that phases out, there's still just like the human touch element with nuance and making sure that things are followed up with and is clearly human, because I don't know about you, I don't particularly like speaking to AI. It can be really frustrating. Let's just get to the point here. And I see this time and time again, even though with the clients I work with, nobody is utilizing AI completely as a replacement. There's still the people I have to pick up and call. And that's just something that still exists and is really important in that component of the work I do.
I will agree with you. I think sometimes things are obviously AI and not necessarily like, oh, this post is really well written, it's written by AI,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
it'll be something that's a misunderstanding and you're not really sure why it's a misunderstanding. And like you said, it can get very frustrating with
mhm,
AI. I
mhm.
recently had to use a chat bot with something that was for travel. And I was asking about visas, and it was like every time I asked it, it kept kicking out the wrong answer,
Yeah,
and I wanted to
yeah.
rip my hair out. It was actually more frustrating as a consumer. And
Mhm.
I was like, this is probably like a 2 second answer that
Hmm.
person could give me a
Yeah.
super quick yes, no. But instead, I probably
Hmm.
spent 25 minutes. And then it was like, we can't answer your question. We have to send you to a person. And then when I hit that person, now I'm really pissed off, right? So
Hmm.
I think if
And
you're, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, the other component of that as well is like scheduling clients. My God, I make it a goal in life to have really good systems in place. I'm the systems queen. Utilize automation as much as possible because I don't want my supervisor's time to be a heavy use of their energy and time scheduling. With that said, even with really good, I consider it really good automation and a flow. There's so much nuance within scheduling. Even I've talked with software companies who have said, we have spent so much time, energy trying to use AI and automation to get scheduling down, and they can't. They've kind of given up. I mean, one company said we just kind of given up. It's as good as it's going to be for now. So yeah, I scheduling is the other aspect. So you call an AI line to schedule an appointment. What if you tell them you want a haircut, but really you meant a bath and tidy? So the time slot is going to be twice as long, and therefore the availability isn't correct. You know what I mean? Like I can follow up, catch that, and be like, oh, I saw you actually have been having bath and tidies, and we have a slot open tomorrow. We can squeeze you in. That is top tier customer service and understanding.
I agree. I also think too, like on the flip side, if somebody has like a golden retriever, and again, those people that are wanting to become VAs, this is also why we highly suggest people hiring a VA who is from the pet industry. Because if I see a golden retriever for a bath, right, I'm going to clarify with them. Okay, do you want the Grinch feet done? Do you want any trim up around the booty? Like, and
Hmm.
again in my savvy groomer world, I don't love bath and tidies. I think it should either be a bath or a groom because I think it really, especially for the consumers, it gets really kind of murky. Because a golden retriever, right? Like, okay, how much am I taking off feathering and what a consumer believes? And these are things that AI just cannot clearly, empathetically communicate, right?
Hmm.
Because if I tell you, as a fellow groomer, I have a golden retriever coming in for just a bath, you're going to say, okay, like just a bath, nothing else,
Hmm.
right? AI, you can try to train it to do that, but it's not going to ask the same questions that you and I, as professionals, can ask that. So.
Yeah. That bath and tidy category is so murky. Totally. It's been such a problem. I didn't realize that you don't recommend bath and tidies. That's
No.
actually brilliant. It
So
would help so much.
So really quickly, those of you guys thinking about being VAs, again, this is something that you can, when you learn things, you can start when you become that more
Hmm.
project manager, that more business manager side, right?
Hmm.
For me, if we're going to keep growing groomers, hiring, someone who does a bath and tidy, with a bather, if I'm
Hmm.
letting them use sharp objects, they need so much more training time, etc. So by saying anyone who uses clippers and scissors is a groomer, it gets rid of that murkiness. And again, that makes scheduling a lot better. And so if you want to come from that grooming side into that VA side, you're going to have knowledge unless if you just want to be a virtual receptionist, you're going to have that and you're going to be able to support that business owner once you become that management level in making decisions like that, right? Because think about how murky it is because especially if you're a virtual assistant, how do I know who can do paw pads and who can't?
Hmm. Hmm.
I have a bather,
Yeah.
some bathers can, some bathers can't. It does make things like scheduling more murky. And again,
Mhm.
ready, as somebody who's worked in the field and is not AI, you can communicate that to your supervisor. So I think that adds so much value, and that's how we really compete with those programs.
Yeah. And we're on the supervisor point. That's kind of my heartbeat on this topic of how groomer VAs are still relevant in comparison to AI because I don't know about you or like my role is different, obviously, but
Hmm.
I have built connections and understanding and I care for my clients a lot. I understand their personality, their interests, their preferences, and that is all so lumped up in nuance and complexity and a real I see you. I feel even though I am an independent contractor, I'm not an employee. In some cases, I really feel like I am in an employee relationship. Like sometimes my clients send me like Christmas gifts or like birthday shout outs on their page. Like I'm on their websites, like it's a real connection point and one that is irreplaceable. Like a robot can never have that kind of relationship.
Well, and I think this is a great point. Like, if you're thinking about coming into the VA space, if you've been a groomer, you've been a part of the community, you've been a part of a team generally, even if you're a mobile groomer, right?
Hmm.
Most of us are from a team-based industry. You're still going to stay in the industry as a groomer, right? If you're a groomer coming to a VA, you're still going to be in the grooming industry. You're still going to be under the umbrella of this wonderful industry. But yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, you're going to be able to, and the most important thing to remember if you're becoming a VA is that you get to pick and choose who you work for. Don't
Hmm.
work for people that you don't like, right? You don't
Hmm.
have to. Um, and I say that like very lightly because I think just like when you start grooming, you're going to learn the red flags, you're going to learn what you don't like. But with that connection, right? I think where life has become more set it and forget it, people are craving that connection, right?
Hmm.
Because I mean, there's a reason that when Starbucks stopped writing people's names on cups, people would complain. And a lot of places have gone back to that. Like when I used to, oh God, I want to say 20 years ago, my son's 14, my local Starbucks, and again, very brilliant corporation. When I was pregnant with my son, they would write Ronan's mom because they
Oh.
remembered my baby's name. And that level of connection keeps people coming back overpaying for coffee,
Hmm.
right? Like I had very, very little money, but one of the treats I did for myself was go and get a cup of coffee because that $6 cup of coffee made me feel in a very desperate time in my life. I was living in my car, for those of you guys that don't know my story. It was super, super poor, but that cup of coffee made me feel so seen and so wonderful. And AI will never do that. So, you as the VA, your job is not just, of course, to offer a 5-star experience for the pet owner, but it's to make your supervisor feel seen, heard, and understood. And I don't even think a regular VA who's outside of our industry can do that because let me tell you what, I don't know about you, Jess, but we all have groomer stories, right? I
Yeah.
remember one day, it was like the day, it was either Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve. And there was this one dog who every time I trimmed its nails, it would express its anal glands. Like it just would get nervous and express it. And I loved that customer. So as a groomer, I'm like, forget it, I'll do it. Well, that dog expressed anal glands all in my face. And I
Fun, fun, fun,
literally
fun.
just walked to the tub and I'm crying and I'm using the sprayer. And my employees are like, what's wrong? I'm like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. But let me tell you what, if I told that to a VA outside of this industry, or
Hmm.
if I tried to explain that to VA, do you think they would have that moment of like, dude, ugh, I get it. Maybe that's never
Yes.
happened to you, but that
Yeah.
sense of failure and what the fuck am I doing with my life, right?
1,000%. I relate so much to my mobile groomers that I work with because ultimately, in combination of switching careers into groomer VA, I mean, generators were the bane of my existence. And so, whenever my mobiles have a van or a trailer issue, any kind of equipment issue on that front, I'm just like, dude, I get it. Like, extra gentle, lots of love, like, oh my gosh, the frantic nature of rescheduling when you have unexpected breakdowns or employees call out, like I understand how stressful that could be for a supervisor. And I want them to know that, be at ease, I've got you. And I think that's priceless. And again, cannot be replaced by AI. And I want to throw in the caveat, and we'll talk more about this.
Yeah.
Like I personally love AI and I utilize it in my business all the time. But I'm just talking like broadly speaking, like are we replaceable? And it's a no. It's a no. You know, it's a
Yep.
no.
I 1000% agree. And really quickly on generators, right? It might even be a supervisor might even decide to make as a VA, they might hire you and say, okay, can you help me make a maintenance schedule for my mobile grooming van, right?
Hmm.
Well, AI is not going to have the lived experience that you have. So you might be like, you know what? Generators, this is the lead time to replace this and that. So we need to add these extra things in, right? You having real world experience is going to help that. So somebody who's like, how can I come into this industry? It's going to be gone in 5 years. I don't think it ever will. And I think somebody will always pay more for expertise and, like you said, that human touch.
Hmm. Totally.
So I want to move a little bit gently into like the task doing.
Hmm.
So I know that you've mentioned that you use it in your own business. And again, I want to keep it on the topic of people that are thinking about becoming a VA. So we have aspiring VAs who are
Hmm.
currently in the pet grooming industry, and they're a little bit worried that they're going to be, like I said, irrelevant in 3 to 5 years.
Hmm.
So, do you think that there's things that either, again, like you've mentioned how AI is a tool, can you give me some more of that? Like, let's say somebody who right now, you know, is going from index cards, because again, I think that's a big problem we have in the industry where people are not even using online
Hmm.
software. Do you really think that somebody who's currently using like a physical appointment book or index cards could then magically step into using AI?
Do you think so? Because I don't.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I'm so pro grooming software. It makes life so easy. That's the first step. I mean, that's a huge automation support tool and utilizes a lot of AI within it. So, are people who are using index card, pen and paper scheduling going to jump to AI? No. And let's be real, like how many of those um groomer supervisors feel confident in their skills to learn AI. I mean, it's constantly evolving. It gets complicated. It's ever vast and changing. And so that's a huge learning curve. So in that particular example, I just don't see the vast majority of people in our industry just jumping straight towards AI right now. And I love our industry, but we do things a little different. And we have a big variety of how people choose to operate their business. And there's no one size fits all in this scenario, right? Um, but it's just complicated because everyone's so different. But in the sum boiled up point, it's like, yes, AI could do a lot for you, but the nuance of, you know, what AI can do versus what a VA can offer. Like it's technical, but it can't do everything. That makes sense? I don't know.
absolutely. And I agree. I think the only way someone gets from like index cards to
Mhm.
AI is if there's like a hot Android who's like, no worries, baby, I've got your cards. And once they get to
Mhm.
that point, that person's also going to have to consider the fact that if someone can physically come and take my index cards, input all the information, do all of that, they're also going to be grooming dogs. So I think that's a
Mhm.
once we get to that like I said, Skynet level of
Mhm.
basically Terminator level androids, we're going to have
Yeah.
totally different conversations, right? I mean, we're
Yeah.
you
The
know,
need for the need for the middleman, and that's a great role for the groomer VAs, like the go between. Well, I think will
yes.
always exist to some capacity, no matter where we're at. And it's it's like I heard this analogy that people are starting to groom their doodles a lot online, which is
Yes.
great. They're picking up the tools, they're learning to do it themselves. Great. A lot of us don't like doing doodles, right? But that's all these pet parents that are starting to groom doodles at home are not replacing groomers. They won't be as good, and it's not so big of a movement that all of a sudden groomers are irrelevant. You know what I mean? And I think that's exactly what's kind of happening with the VA, groomer VA and the AI comparison. It's just like, yeah, it's there. It's not gonna shake the world here. Well, I,
I
I mean, it is. Let's be real. So that's a AI is a huge topic, guys.
It
It's
is.
it's
And don't get overwhelmed. I feel like that's something like in the future we're going to need to talk more about, and I
hmm.
really want to leave space for that.
Hmm.
I think we could go on and on for hours. And I know I'm like, okay, we need to talk about this tiny topic, and it's like, it bleeds into so many things.
Yeah. Timestamp, guys. This is 2025. Check
Uh,
back in
yeah,
2026.
I know, right? I mean, even then we are, in summer 2025. So who
Hmm.
knows what's going to look like even in the fall or the winter. I mean, who knows, right?
Hmm.
We're gonna have like ride-on robots pretty soon. I'm super excited. Listen, I want my Thundercat. I'm ready for it. It's cool.
I'm
Um,
excited too.
right? But I think the at-home grooming movement is a beautiful example of if you're worried about your job going out, right? Because again, I don't think there's I do think there's some groomers who are like, oh my God, if they groom their dogs at home, who are we going to groom? But the truth is that for better or for worse, those people are a very small minority, right?
Hmm.
They, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to learn how to groom, and we know that. And so they're going to learn how to groom their specific dog to their specific standard in their specific way, using tools that they've chosen to invest in. And if we were to look at their groom compared to our grooms, if we were to look at their bathing skills and their equipment, we would be like, ugh, right? We wouldn't, that would not be something that we could work with. And so let's be honest, if you're a VA coming into this industry to work with groomers, you don't want to work with the groomer who would be perfectly okay with that doodle groom, right? Because us as a professional groomers look at that doodle groom and we're like, we know. We like, oh, really? Groomed at home? We're like, we're being nice, right? We know you groom that dog. And if you paid someone to groom that dog, we'd be a little offended as a profession. And so I think the VA is very similar in that way, where absolutely you can use AI for that. But the amount of time and energy it takes a pet grooming business owner, which we call a supervisor for sanity's sake, we either know, or on the flip side, you're spending so much time as a supervisor, as a grooming business owner, learning to do that, that it's taking away time and money from you grooming or managing your business. And for some people, that's their hobby and they're always going to do it. But those
Hmm.
wouldn't be your customers anyway. So, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure, Jess, you do discovery calls with those kind of DIYers, and you realize that even if you could help them, their standards are a little lower and they
Mhm.
would appreciate the work that you would do.
Yeah, and I try and cater to all groups of people from DIY, do it yourself, do it with you, done for you
Mhm.
aspect. But I mean, ultimately, my mission is to help support supervisors to reclaim their time, to spend it with family and what's important in life. Pamper pets, not paperwork. So I'm, yeah, that all aligns. And utilizing AI within the work I do, absolutely. Being, scared that we're gonna lose everybody to AI, all my customers. No, I'm not worried about that at all.
No, and I also think that too, for better or for worse, coming from, and this is, we're going to definitely have a podcast later on money and things like that. But I will also say that you have to understand as well, if you're coming into the VA space, that money works very different in an online business versus a grooming business. In a grooming business, you book an appointment, you can groom a dog, and you get money that day. And
Hmm.
especially in the online world, you can plant a seed and not see income for weeks or months. And that's very, very important. So if your main fear about being replaced by AI is, will I make enough money? This is really not the kind of industry if you need money today. This is more of an
Hmm.
industry where you're going to grow and invest in yourself and in tools and then see that money come later. And I think that's
Hmm.
really, really important, because I do think a lot of people think they're going to come into becoming a VA and it's going to be a get rich quick kind of scheme. And it's not. I promise you're going to make money a lot faster as a groomer,
Hmm.
mostly because you can literally just, I promise you, if you want to get a job tomorrow, somewhere that would be like, I got dogs, just show up with your clippers, right?
Hmm. And I've thought about it, but then I quickly retreated. I was like, no, 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 no.
Right.
I love my freedom and flexibility.
Yes. And here's the thing, right? There's nothing wrong with being a groomer and there's nothing wrong with being a VA for groomers.
Hmm.
But it's one of those things that it's really easy. Like if I needed to make an extra $500 or something, I know I could go work at a shop for a day or two and make that income. No problem.
Hmm.
a VA requires more work in the sense that you've got to build up things that you don't have to as a groomer. So
Yeah.
I think that's super important too when it comes to AI replacing us, is that AI is a great tool, but again, it's not like I'm going to be a VA tomorrow and replace my grooming income immediately. And I think that's where you have to be very aware. It's not about being replaced, but it is about acknowledging that money is not coming as quickly as a VA as it would a groomer, for better or for worse.
Yeah. That's a whole podcast in itself.
Absolutely. But I think it's important to mention because I think people are like, oh, but
Hmm.
how do I make money quickly? And it's like, well, making money quickly as a VA is just not, I wouldn't do it. I think that this is more of an oven kind of business where groomer can be a little bit, I mean, in a perfect world, we would build our business as an oven. But
Hmm.
a lot of groomers, you could pick up a job tomorrow and be making money immediately. And the reason I bring that up is again, if you're like, oh, well, AI took this part of my job, so therefore I'm going to make
Hmm.
less money. If
Hmm.
money is your main reason for becoming a VA, I would pause you on that. So if you're thinking about coming into this side, you've got to have other reasons. Yes, you can make money from home. Absolutely. But it's important that you're building it for the right reasons. And so AI is not, I think, your main concern becoming a VA. I think it is shifting a lot of your mindsets. And we talked about that on
Hmm.
on a different podcast as well.
Hmm. Totally. Yeah. I think we nailed it.
Whoop, whoop. We did a very good job. Is there anything else that you want to mention to those coming into, considering coming into the VA and being a little bit worried about competing with AI?
Yeah, I think just to my point of like no one size fits all, and that's often what AI offers, but nuance, that's the word. We
Absolutely.
provide nuance.
I think that's perfect. All right. So I am going to love you and leave you guys. Thank you so much, Jess, as always, for being here. And if you guys are wondering, what are you listening to? This is the Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table podcast with River Lee of the Savvy Groomer and Step Away from the Table. And of course, the amazing Jess, the systems queen of Groomer Support
Yes.
Services.
Yes, that's
And
right.
yes, and this was all about, can I compete with AI? Is there still room for real people? And we were talking specifically to aspiring VAs who were afraid that AI was going to make them irrelevant. So, as
Mhm.
always, guys, happy grooming.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining me on Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. If today's episode sparked something in you, don't forget to follow, share, or leave a review. It helps more groomers like you find their next step. You don't have to do this alone, but you get to do it your way. Until next time, take a deep breath and keep moving forward.